Seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton has retaliated against what he sees as Pirelli's dangerous attempt to run the F1 cars for the upcoming season without tyre blankets. The proposed regulation changes from Formula One's sole tyre supplier have drawn criticism from a number of drivers and team managers, making it a contentious issue within the paddock. So, what was it that Pirelli attempted to accomplish with these new rules? Why are drivers angry? And what will happen to the proposed tyre changes? Watch until the end of the video to find out. Now, the latest revision of the current technical regulations, which includes a section outlining changes for 2024, temporarily postponed the long-planned ban on tyre blankets for the upcoming season. A decision regarding the following season will be made in July. So, in the meantime, Pirelli must design and test tyres that satisfy the drivers, teams, and the FIA. Along with racing against the clock, there won't be much track running available. Only 3 slick test sessions remain for Pirelli to reach its goal. A selection of teams will run for 2 days in Bahrain and again over 2 days following both the Spanish and British GPs, after which the call on 2024 will be made. Pirelli has been working towards a blanket ban for some time, primarily for commendable sustainability reasons, as it will result in teams using less electricity at the track and saving money by not having to ship blankets around the world. The idea is to remove blankets is something that we've discussed years ago, says Pirelli F1 boss Mario Zola. And it's a common target, which means FIA, F1, teams, Pirelli, promoters to achieve carbon neutrality for 2030. Any step to make our sport more sustainable is important. One of these steps is to remove blankets to avoid using electricity to warm up the tyre before usage. Now, thanks to lower temperatures and shorter storage times, there has already been progress in recent years. According to Isola, the energy needed to heat F1 tyres in 2022 will be half what it was a decade prior. The next step is a complete ban, which was initially proposed in the FIA regulations for the following year. However, the rule was modified following the most recent F1 Commission meeting, so the current default position is that blankets will be kept. Now, it was agreed that after further testing, a vote would take place in July. Only 5 teams will need to agree if F1 and the FIA support the change, a procedure put in place to prevent 1 or 2 teams from opportunistically opposing the proposal. That decision is in respect of an overall ban that covers slicks and intermediates. At the same meeting, it was decided to make an exception for full wets. In essence, Pirelli wanted to introduce those this season because testing of them has been so successful. They'll be used from round 6 in Imola onwards. We tested before the Christmas break some wet weather tyres, says Isola. That was also our priority because last year drivers were not happy about wet weather tyres. We found a new compound that is able to work without blankets. We made a comparison with the old tyre with blankets in cold conditions because in December we didn't have warm conditions. And we tested in Paul Ricard, Fiorano and Portimao. And in all of the 3 different circuits with 3 different teams and 5 different drivers, the comments were positive, better warm-up and better performance. So the next step for Pirelli is to develop intermediates and slicks that will enable drivers to push hard right out of the pits without being preheated. But that hasn't happened yet because both tyres are significantly more complicated and difficult than the wets. The current prototype slicks behave somewhat analogously to stopping for dry tyres too soon and slithering around on a wet track for a few laps before they come in and perform at their best. That slow warm-up has a big impact on strategy options and hence how races work. But for the drivers, the main concern is safety. Hamilton, who ran it alongside George Russell at both Jerez and Paul Ricard earlier this year, is one of the few who has tried the most recent version of the slick, and he wasn't happy with how it performed. "I think it's dangerous," he said when asked by the media about the new tyres. "I've tested the no blanket and there's going to be an incident at some stage. So from a safety factor, I think it's the wrong decision. You have to drive multiple laps to get the tyres to work. The whole argument is that taking away the blankets is going more sustainable and more green, but in actual fact we just use more fuel to get the temperature into the tyres. More of a concern is that when you go out, you're skating around and it's very twitchy. If someone else is on tyres that are working, you can easily collide with them, so it's a pointless exercise. I still don't understand why F1 is moving away from blankets," added Ferrari Sainz. "Because for me it makes no sense. You're burning more fuel to warm up the tyres. I just don't understand the philosophy, but also putting the drivers at risk with these lower ride height cars. But it's the direction F1, the FIA and Pirelli have decided to take, so we need to adapt." Given that he and Russell both used the tyres on a 2022 Mercedes in a Pirelli test at the beginning of February as part of the 24 tyre test program, Hamilton is in a good position to comment on them. However, it should be noted that this was in cold conditions and using rubber that was still in development and far off the final product. Pirelli's head of F1, Mario Zola, said he could see why Hamilton felt as he did, but the situation needed to be understood in its proper context. He specifically made the point that drivers of the caliber of Formula 1 have enough expertise to modify their approach to racing without tyre blankets and create warmer-up techniques that are more efficient. Isola added that Hamilton was entirely correct to point out that the fuel used by cars as they warm up their tyres on the track should be taken into account when deciding whether to outlaw blankets. However, Pirelli is confident that it will be able to deliver on the warm-up qualities, given the current test tyres are in their ideal operating window within 2 laps. Because of this, the emphasis right now is on increasing the grip level when leaving the pits. Nevertheless, the need for a large working window and the significant pressure change from cold to hot, which Isola estimates to be 9 to 10 psi, makes it difficult to manufacture such tyres. Naturally, Pirelli will carry on with its development plan in the months to come, before meetings that might result in the F1 Commission voting to impose a general ban for 2024. Not only will the suitability of the tyres themselves be taken into consideration, but also their effect on the show. This is due to worries that the broad ban might result in less strategic variety. The question is whether, even if Pirelli does hit its targets with the 2024 test tyres that will make the tyre warmer ban viable, the teams will vote against it. F1 teams typically oppose such changes and will probably use the need to incorporate the ban on tyre blankets into their 2024 car design, which will by that time already be well underway as justification for their opposition. Isola, however, is certain that Pirelli can create a product that is robust enough. He cites the team's support for the development of a blanketless wet tyre as evidence that they will be receptive to such a change. Teams have an open mind about the blanket controversy. The general consensus is that they're content for them to be dropped because it will save money on annual freight costs, but the new tyres will still need to be effective. I think what we ought to do is make sure that they're completely to the right standard before we ban tyre blankets, says Alpine boss Otmar Safnauer. Let's see where we go. I hear Pirelli have done a good job on the wet weather tyres without needing blankets, so that's great. But before we ban them, we all have them, they all exist, they're all purchased, so you don't save any money. So you might save a little shipping costs, but they're not that heavy. So I think we should be using them until a time we're all happy that without them, it'll be safe and good. However, Hamilton's strong criticism suggests the drivers are not keen overall though, and with the defaults in the rules now being that the tyre heating devices are permitted next year on the same basis as in 2023, the odds are that the ban will at least be postponed. So what do you think about the tyre blanket saga? What will happen if the ban for the upcoming season is approved? Share your thoughts in the comments down below.